You're watching The End Zone, sponsored by Brahms.
Welcome to another edition of The End Zone, along with Camyrn Johnson, and our guest this week, Trace Ford, making his return to The End Zone. I am Colby Daniels. It is a monster week of college football in the state of Oklahoma. College Gameday is in town for Oklahoma, Michigan. One of the biggest games, I think, in Sooner history, at least in this era. At home, Oklahoma State hits the road to face a top 10 opponent in Oregon. It doesn't get any better, I think, just for the state in terms of high-profile opponents than this weekend. Trace, welcome back, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back here.
Yeah, no, I don't think it gets much bigger than what we're going to see this Saturday. I mean, we got two blue blood programs, two of the most winningest programs between Oklahoma and Michigan, and with it being a night game, I think Norman's going to be a rocking place, and that's just going to be a fun environment to be a part of, no matter what happens, I think.
What's your expectation of just, I guess, the overall atmosphere in Norman for Michigan coming to town? It's only the second ever matchup between these two historic programs. I was looking at the numbers earlier. Michigan is the winningest program of all time. OU is number 6. Now, a lot of Michigan's wins came like a century ago. But that said, I mean, they still are a historic program. The only other meeting was the 1975 Orange Bowl. OU won 14-6. But, I mean, this is the second ever matchup, first ever on a campus. College Gameday is going to be in town. I think for both schools, trying to bounce back from last year, this is a gigantic game in terms of just the overall trajectory of their season.
I think with it being a home advantage here in Norman and it being at night, like she said, it's going to be a major advantage for OU. I think it's going to be a defensive shootout, and I think it's going to be like the Orange Bowl with a low-scoring game, in my opinion. So. Well,
let's talk about the offense because we saw a lot of low-scoring performances out of the offense a year ago. There's a big expectation that Ben Arbuckle, new offensive coordinator, John Mateer, new quarterback, and especially that pass catcher room with a lot of transfer portal faces are going to give a major lift to this offense. That was the case at least in week number 1, right? 392 yards for John Mateer. He made the most of the passing opportunities. We'll get to the run game in a minute. It wasn't as successful, but the OU passing attack looked good, and Mateer certainly looked, I thought, confident in pulling the trigger.
I agree. I mean, he's living up to the hype already. I mean, he's already playing fast. He's running the ball. He's throwing the ball, and I think it's only going to get more and more better with the chemistry going throughout the season. So.
Yeah, I think, there's a little bit of concern when your first 2 drives end in a 3-and-out and a fumble, but I think once they got over that, the offense started to look like what you expected it to look like, minus the run game, of course, but Mateer did a lot of good things. I can't remember who said it, but just felt like he was in control the whole time, even when he had his little slip-ups and interception. It just felt like he settled right in and was ready to lead the charge.
Kind of feels like it's the difference between having experience like he does, whereas last year you had talented quarterbacks on the roster, but they didn't have the experience to maybe give them that natural confidence of just going in there and doing what John Mateer did in his debut, I guess, and that's probably the biggest difference, I would assume.
Yeah, I also think just last year with the rotation of the offensive line and just never having nothing sticking and the same guys every game, the chemistry never really was there, and that's what I'm looking forward to this year, is having a set O-line that can have a strong chemistry with Mateer. So.
Well, speaking of that O-line, that was probably the group that was under the most scrutiny after the season opening win. They did not rush the football well. They were not able to just run the football on demand. That's a group that's going to have to, I think, improve significantly against one of the better defensive fronts in college football in the Michigan Wolverines.
I agree. That's why I think it will be a defensive battle right there.
Yeah, it also helps. They're going to get some guys back too. I think Basusi is he back or is he close to back? I can't remember what
I don't know what the official injury report says, at least at this time.
Yeah, but I think a lot of work to be done. But yeah, it's going to be a tall task this weekend. They're gonna have to grow up quick.
Clearly, Mateer's playmaking ability with his legs is going to have to be a factor in the run game. I don't think that they're probably at a point where they can just run the football in the normal way of just handing it to a running back. Although we can't say that 100% because the star running back, Jade Knott, really, one carry, I think, late in the game. The common thought is that they're trying to preserve him for this game to be 100%. So we'll probably get a healthy dose of Jade Knott, assuming he doesn't get hurt. So I don't know that they can't run the football in a traditional way when you have that type of talent that's going to be unleashed this weekend. But if the offensive line obviously doesn't do their part or doesn't improve, then it may be irrelevant who's back there.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's good that you have a quarterback that can run, but you don't want to just constantly have to make him be the primary runner. So I think this is going to be a pivotal game for them to just figure out, because if they can't get that run game figured out, the SEC is not going to be kind to them, let alone the Big Ten. So we'll see.
The one thing you can hang your hat on, though, is the defense, right? Trace was on that defense last year, and they're going to face a true freshman quarterback on Saturday night, and they're going to get after him. Brent Venables is going to be aggressive with the play calling to hopefully confuse the freshmen, but that front seven is as nasty as I think any group in college football, including Michigan.
R. Mason Thomas is easily the best pass rusher in college football, and you have Taylor Wine, Adepaju Adebore, Grayson Halton, Sammy Asamigo, Kendall Daniels, just the list goes on. That front seven is really, really good, and the chemistry is really strong in that locker room with those guys. So I'm really confident in that defense, and they'll get the job done.
Yeah, the one thing that did surprise me in the opener, speaking of the defense, I thought was the physicalities, at least on the edge with the corners. I thought Cortland Guillory and Peyton Bowen both played with physicality when the ball was able to get to the perimeter. We know the safeties are big-time tacklers and did a lot of that, but I thought those outside, Gentry Williams, the other outside guy, I thought that made tackles in space. It didn't get there often because most of the time it was shut down, but I thought across the board the tackling was phenomenal.
I think it's super exciting to see a true freshman, playing really good at the corner spot. And it's the first game, and who knows what his career is going to look like. But I think that's something OU fans could really get excited about too.
It's probably the one position that I think you're most unsure about going into this season, especially with the injuries to Gentry Williams, Eli Bowen starting the year with injuries, and then you're counting on a true freshman. Outside of that, at least for me, I don't really have a question mark, and you were a part of that unit a year ago. I mean, that looks like one of the top defenses in all of college football, really on all levels, especially if the cornerback position is solidified.
Yeah, they had high expectations coming into this season, and so far they have met them, if not exceeded them, and I think that's really good. Especially, they lost some big stars last year, but they've picked up right where they left off. And I think even Venables was saying he expects this group to be even better. So between them meeting expectations and the offense, for the most part, meeting expectations, I think it's a really promising sign for the rest of the season if they can get those two things going at the same time. Because historically, it feels like OU's either been all offense or all defense, and just there's never been a happy medium. So I'm hoping that so far this looks like there's a shot this year.
It's a monster matchup in Norman on Saturday night, and obviously one way or the other, I think a lot of expectations for the remainder of the season are going to skyrocket. So should be a ton of fun. All right, we got to talk about the other school in the state, Oklahoma State, who is heading west to Oregon to face a top 10 opponent. Giant point spread in this one. We'll break it all down next here on the End Zone. All right, along with Camyrn Johnson, I am Colby Daniels. Trace Ford, former Cowboy and Sooner, is our guest this week. We talked Oklahoma, Michigan. We'll talk a little bit more about that game and give our game picks toward the end of the show. But Oklahoma State is headed west to face the Oregon Ducks. About a decade ago, these teams were kind of viewed as similar type programs, right? You had these head coaches that were emerging and these programs that were finally cracking the top 10 and making runs at potential national championships. Both were kind of known as having the uniform situation. And, it's kind of crazy. The last 5 years, that's kind of gone in different directions. But at least in 2025, it's a 4-touchdown point spread in favor of the Oregon Ducks. And for Oklahoma State, the season opener, I think, brought a lot of super high hopes. 2-quarterback system. Your starter goes out in week 1. Now it's the Zane Flores experience. I don't really know what to expect in week number 2, but we do know that it's going to be one quarterback barring an injury. And I guess we can start there with the offense. I mean, Zane Flores gets the opportunity. They didn't run the ball well. One of your former teammates, Caleb Hicks from Oklahoma, is now in Stillwater. I thought he ran hard, but just didn't really have anywhere to go.
I think Caleb Hicks has a lot of potential, and like you said, he just didn't have nowhere to go. I think once they can get it to click and he can start getting the ball going, I think he'll have a lot of success in the run game. Yeah.
Yeah, that offensive line, they've got to be able to open up the field and allow the running backs to run the ball. What was 3 yards per carry, I think, is what they had against Tennessee Martin, and that's just not at all what you want to see. Forces the quarterback to have to shoulder the burden a little bit more, and that makes an already tough situation for Zane Flores just even tougher. He can throw the ball well, but if he can't have time to throw it, then that creates some real trouble. So. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of question marks, and they're going to have to bring their best because it could get ugly if they don't.
They didn't run the ball well against UT Martin. I have a hard time seeing them run the ball well against Oregon, 9 days later. Now, the good news is, I guess, because they played on Thursday night, there's a couple extra days of preparation. But, I mean, how much is that worth in the grand scheme of what the opponent is? I also don't know that they're going to be able to rely on the passing game because I don't know that they can protect long enough for Zane Flores to really display the passing ability, especially against the aggressive Oregon front that I think as far as getting after the quarterback, I know a week ago they didn't play opponent to the caliber of Oklahoma State, but we do know the type of athletes they have on the defensive line that have played college football for multiple years, and all of those guys are capable of getting into the backfield very quickly.
Oregon has a very experienced D-line. They have a very experienced defense. I think it's going to be very important to tempo the game, really slow it down, and try to stay ahead of the time schedule. And I'm sure Gundy has showed them the spread. If he hasn't, I would hope the players see the spread and take that as a sign of disrespect and really get fired up about this game.
No doubt. As far as the defense goes, I mean, it was almost a complete overhaul, right? Similar to the offense. I think because the offense had so much focus on the quarterback position, it maybe wasn't discussed as much. But you're talking about a lot of new faces, guys getting new opportunities. Wendell Gregory last week had the 3 sacks and then gets arrested a couple days later to just kind of add to the confusion of what you're going to get from Oklahoma State overall. But Oregon put up a lot of points. They did it through the air. They did it on the ground. I thought at least in the opener, if you're gonna say anything positive, I thought the team speed overall from sideline to sideline, especially with the 2 linebackers with McCoy and Rawls, I thought those guys flew around the field, and at least the team speed seemed to be there.
Yeah, I feel like the linebacker unit didn't get enough love in the preseason. Obviously, that's going to be the case when you don't know half the people on the team. They weren't there before. But I thought they looked really athletic, really strong. They were flying to the ball, like you said. But yeah, I mean, I feel like OSU kind of had that theme of they got something really good going and then something happened. Haas Haney looked really good. Injury. Wendell Gregory looks really good. Arrested. A little bit different outcomes there. But yeah, no, I think there are a lot of flashes of promise in this team that I think if they can just get it clicking, it's going to bode well for them, but tough to get it clicking against a top 10 Oregon team.
Well, everybody says Gundy's at his best when he's an underdog and nobody expects them to do anything. That would certainly be the case this week, at least nationally. Nobody's going to expect them to go into Oregon and get the win. One thing that is gaining traction nationally, though, is, I guess, the verbal sparring between Mike Gundy and Dan Lanning. Mike Gundy kind of just made a passing comment, and I know there were more comments made on his radio show that went into further detail. I never took them as offensive, but he basically just said, like, Oregon is able to spend a lot of money on their football program, a lot more than we're able to spend on their football program. Dan Lanning then responded to that, and we'll just let you guys listen to all of it.
Oregon is playing really well. I think they're well coached. They're spending a lot of money, and they've put a lot into that organization, and you can see they're a good football team.
I got a ton of respect for Coach Gundy. Ultimately, how blessed are we to be in a place that's invested in winning? If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better be invested in winning. And we spend to win. Some people save to have an excuse for why they don't, right? And ultimately, he's a great coach. They've done an unbelievable job, but I want to be a team that's competing at the highest level. And we're really fortunate to be in that situation. So I can't speak on their situation. I have no idea, what they got in their pockets over there. I'm sure UT Martin maybe didn't have as much as them last week, and they played. So we'll let it play out.
There you go. I don't know if that adds bulletin board material to Oregon or Oklahoma State, but at least nationally it's being talked about, and we'll see what happens on Saturday. All right, we're going to take a timeout. Trace Ford scored a touchdown last time on Moving the Chains, so no pressure. That's next here on the End Zone. Back to the End Zone. It is time for Moving the Chains. Trace Ford is our guest this week. So last time Trace was on the show, a touchdown was scored. So no pressure. Don't turn the ball over this time. You know, it's a first down is still good, but maybe you'll get the second touchdown, which would be, I think, the first time in end zone history. All right, 1st and 10 for Trace Ford. Top 3 OU defensive players that you are watching. You know these guys probably better than anybody. So.
No, yeah, I'm watching Kendall Daniels. I want to see how he operates while Kendall Dolby's out, not playing well. Not
following
playing
in your footsteps, by the way.
Yes, and following in my
Stillwater
footsteps.
to Norman.
Little bro, got to see how he performs. I'm looking forward to see R. Mason Thomas and if he can continue playing like he did last year. And obviously, Adepaju Adebore, that's my boy, and I'm just excited to see him take a next step from last year.
What do you
Solid
think, Camyrn?
answers. I'm going to go nice pickup of 5. Good.
All
good
right.
start. Yeah.
5 yards on first down. You'll take that every day of the week. All right, 2nd and 5. After going 3-9 last season, what is a good bounce back season at OSU? What record-wise would you say, you know what, they really bounced back?
7-6. You know, Gundy doesn't have losing records, and that's one of the things that makes him such a great coach. And I think that's what makes OSU such a great school to go to. And I think they should continue looking to have winning seasons. And so 7-6 is a great season for me.
Especially with the early adversity they faced, I'd say that's a pretty solid answer. Don't want to, we're going to make you work for it a little bit. I'll give you
all right.
pickup of 4 there.
Okay, 3rd and 1. So you're going to have 2 opportunities to at least move the chains, if not more. So week 1 of college football, there were a lot of big matchups. There were a lot of storylines. Who had the worst week 1? Arch Manning, not good in Columbus. Bill Belichick, who got torched by the Horned Frogs, or just overall the Alabama Crimson Tide?
I would say Bill Belichick, just because, you know, you have all these side pieces of him talking to his girlfriend and, you know, them just getting slaughtered, you know, and it's just his first game in college football, and you see this, it's just a really bad performance overall by one of the legends. So.
And then you throw in, I think they had like a shot where they cut to his girlfriend and she's just like on her phone, like not paying attention. That adds insult
That's
to
tough.
injury.
That's tough.
But yeah,
We all do it though, right?
I mean,
we all look
yes,
at our phones
it's just
occasionally
poor
during football
timing that
games,
they
but
caught
yeah.
her at that exact moment. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the right answer there. I'll give you a pickup of, let's go 5.
I mean, look, North Carolina, though, is not Alabama. I don't think anybody expected him to come in and win a national championship. Arch Manning, though, was expected to win the Heisman this year. He was the betting favorite to win the Heisman. So I think you could go one other way.
You could, yeah. It's
That's
kind of
fair,
like
that's fair.
pride versus, you know.
Fair enough.
expectations,
All right, final one. So last time you joined us, I think it was right at the beginning of the NBA playoffs, the Thunder getting ready to make their championship run, which was epic. So final question, will OKC Thunder repeat as NBA champions?
We're the next Golden State Warriors. We have another 2 or 3 championships in the next 4 years. Clock it.
Boom! He's calling his shot. What do we got?
I like the optimism. That's going to the end zone. That's a touchdown.
Touchdown! Trace Ford for the 2nd time in end zone history. We're going to have to build a stat sheet. Stat leaders, Trace Ford, 2 touchdowns here on Moving the Chains. All right, it is game picks to wrap up the show next here on the End Zone.
Time now for the Brahms in the Bag Pick of the Week.
All right, time for game picks this week. Not nearly the same caliber of games across the board as we had in that epic week 1 last weekend. But let's start with Baylor at SMU, a rivalry game, and for Baylor, a bounce back game.
Yeah, I was going to say Baylor coming off a loss. I take the Bears in this one. And I expect it to be a close game, but yeah, Bears.
I'm taking SMU. You know, you have Kevin Jennings, who's a threat on the field, running and passing. I got SMU.
I think this is a close game either way, and if I'm getting a field goal on either side, I'm probably taking the points. So give me Baylor +3, and I think there's a chance they win outright. All right, game number 2, an SEC battle. Ole Miss at Kentucky. The Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss team is favored by 10.5.
I feel comfortable in that number. They're coming off, they lost to Kentucky last year. I think they've got some revenge on their minds, so I think that should be a pretty manageable win for the Rebels there.
Yeah, I'm with Camyrn. Ole Miss all the way.
Austin Simmons looked really good in the opener. I think it's 2 weeks in a row. Give me Ole Miss. I will say, when all 3 people on the end zone are on one side, it's usually bad news for that team in the history of this show. So good luck, Ole Miss, but we all have confidence in you. All right, another rivalry matchup, the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Iowa State Cyclones.
I think Iowa State had a little more of a convincing opening win. Granted, Iowa's Iowa. They don't score a ton of points, but yeah, I'm going the Cyclones on this one.
I'm also going with the Cyclones just because of their offense, and also they have 2 games under their belt compared to Iowa's 1.
Give me Iowa State. I just don't have a lot of confidence in the Iowa offense at all. All right, Oklahoma State at Oregon, a 4-touchdown favorite essentially for the Ducks.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Oregon's probably going to come out victorious in this one. Do I think it's by 28 points? I don't know. That's a lot of touchdowns, but yeah, Oregon.
I got OSU, you know, my heart's telling me one thing, and I'm going to go with it.
Oregon wins big. I don't know that it's 4 touchdowns big, though. I will take Oklahoma State in the points. All right, OU, Michigan, the Sooners -5.5.
OU takes this one. I think home field advantage works their way.
Likewise, I think OU will win this one.
Physical game, but OU separates late. Give me the Sooners. Let's go 27-17. All right, that is it for us. Trace, we appreciate you. Everybody have a great football weekend.